the phenomenon that was American Sniper. It opened, I think the 3-day was something like 90 something million, and then basically between opening wide on Friday and now today Thursday, it has already outgrossed the entire run of Lone Survivor. So it's an absolute phenomenon. What do you attribute sort of the real box office success of this non-tentpole movie? Was it just marketed to the right way to the right audiences?
I think so. I think you've got, Rocket Raccoon in the lead, and no, I'm kidding. It has nothing to do with that. Bradley Cooper. I think that we've seen, and we talked about this a little bit earlier this year, that you can galvanize certain audiences, whether it's sort of the church groups with Heaven is Real. I think in this way, this was speaking to sort of military people, military families, wanting to gather around and support the tale of an American hero. And I think that's the story of this movie, and that's the story of the success. Whether you agree with the depiction or not, whether you love the movie or not, I do think that is why, that is the audience, the target that it's hitting, and that's who it's speaking to, that people want to feel like they are supporting the men and women who are in the military by going to see this film and celebrating Chris Kyle's life. So that's the story of the success of this movie as far as I'm concerned. Scott?
Have we reached a point where our audience is done with the complications of war? I mean, I think America is done with war. It's been 14 years since 9/11.
America is factually not done with war.
I'm aware, but I think people are done with it, right? We won't want anything to do with this nonsense anymore, kind of. And I wonder if the success of this movie is indicative of people wanting to kind of, let's celebrate the heroes, let's be done with it, let's move forward.
We'll see. I mean, or there's the flip side to it, which is they want the more positive kind of, maybe positive isn't the right word, but there were definitely critical looks in Hurt Locker to a lesser degree, but Zero Dark 30, even though it celebrated the SEALs, you could definitely see sort of the toll and the sort of at least with the CIA angle of it, it was definitely complicated. It's not, and Green Zone was flopped big time. So, I mean, maybe they don't want a politicized movie necessarily, but American Sniper has found itself politicized, whether it aimed to be or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because those films, you look at Zero Dark 30, it wasn't. I was really interested in the response to that film because to me it wasn't disparaging at all of either the CIA, and this woman was painted to some degree as a hero, as heroically.
It was probably Jason Clarke's character, I think, was the one that was
determined.
Yeah.
To find Osama bin Laden, and it didn't paint the SEALs as bad guys at all. No, they were guys who were very good at their jobs.
Including Star-Lord.
Yeah, extremely efficient. But,
the torture complicated that whole situation, though. Isn't that where the controversy came from?
I mean, that was the truth.
Well, I'm not arguing it. I'm just saying people are uncomfortable with
the moral complexities of these issues, whether it is in a film like that or in Zero Dark 30, seems to possibly limit the scope of the audience you're going to be able to reach. And I think at least the word I kept hearing in the coverage of American Sniper this past weekend was superhero, that it was basically, it performed like a superhero movie, and Chris Kyle was a superhero, and all this sort of, and to me it was sort of kind of a step back, because I feel like if you watch any of the interviews with Chris Kyle, he's a very regular guy. Like, he is that kind of guy that you would meet in a bar somewhere in middle America, and you would never know that he had done this, that, or the other thing. And it's like and I think by kind of reducing it to these kind of simplistic, and somebody even wrote a column the other day about how, and I forget what site, so forgive me for that, but compare him to a 21st century John Rambo, and it's like, that to me is kind of a disservice to a real person,
I I mean, I think it's funny because we were talking about this before too. If you look at the movies that came out of things like World War II, and they were very celebratory of like our boys and our heroes, you can
during the war,
and during the war
too.
You can sort of understand people that are sacrificing to the degree that military families are, wanting that sense of validation and sense of respect and sense of feeling celebrated by the nation that their family members or they themselves are fighting for. My brother was in the military. My grandfather was in the military. I have a lot of respect for the military, and it is a reality of our world, an unfortunate reality of our world, that we as human beings have constructed ourselves in such a way that we need it.
Yeah.
And they are willing to do it. I'm not doing it. And I would love to have a lot more support for vets in terms of aftercare, in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of a million other things that I think that we need to do to support our vets that include not sending them on multiple tours. But I do agree with you in the sense that, like, look, I'm not disparaging American Sniper 2. I do think it's speaking to that audience, a movie that deals with the complexities of war and the complexities of wars in this particular case, this man's life, which led to his death. A man who was suffering from severe PTSD. Did I just say that
PTSD.
right? PTSD, good God.
No, PTSD.
PTSD. Sorry about that, no
from
coffee today. PTSD ended up killing him when Chris Kyle was trying to help him. You know, that's a side to war, and if we really want to support the people that are in the military, then we need to look at all sides to it, because if there's something about the way something happened to that man that killed him, and that's a tragedy in itself. Maybe that's not the story that needed to be told in this film. This film is based on the book that Kyle himself wrote called American Sniper, and maybe that's okay to celebrate this guy's life in this way. I'm not sure, but hopefully not in such what you said concerns me, the idea that like we're done looking at war. Well, that's not fair to the people that have to fight it.
Of course. No, of course you're right, but I don't think, people don't, it's not as simple as let's go kill the Nazis anymore, right? I mean, like, we went into Iraq and look what happened there, you know. It was supposed to be, we went in and installed the type of government that we believe in, and it didn't really work out. And I think it's hard for people to understand that, and it's easier to just say, like, you know, we need our John Wayne, you know, we need our Rambo. It's a simpler, kind of easy way to deal with the situation. It's not realistic, though.
Well, let me swing it away from the NPR chat that we're having right now.
Next, we're going to talk opera.
But do we think does the phenomenal box office success of American Sniper? You know, this is a movie that was nominated for Best Picture, Bradley Cooper. How does this impact its Oscar chances? Does it go up, or with some of the backlash going on, at least in Hollywood, does it diminish its chances? Typically, I feel like the Oscars seem to reward the movie that made the most money. Like I mean, Braveheart and Forrest Gump.
Yeah,
things like that.
It's a political campaign.
Yeah, it really is, and I think it was George Lucas actually who was saying that recently. But do we think? I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you think American Sniper's chances have gone up because of its box office success, or down? Its Oscar chances?
I think up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think up. I mean, I think it's a movie that more people are talking about. More people are seeing it. More people are talking about it. We know the Oscars usually aren't about the best film or the most deserving film, and I think money is of great importance in Hollywood, and a movie that, like you said, a movie that makes money is often a movie that wins as well. So I think the chances are just going up.
I think it's also just more in the conversation, and then so Academy members will be more likely to actually give it a look. You know,
it's on their minds because that's what people are chattering about.
Which is so crappy that they have to be reminded to give it a look when they're voting. They're the ones deciding.
But the truth is that is the reality. Yep. And this film, you know, you briefly touched on it. Though it's a huge success with audiences, was not a huge success with critics. And so had it not been a huge success with critics and not been a huge success with audiences, people would be less likely to give it a look. They're going to be looking at the things that people are talking about. Now, realistically, do I think that this movie will win? I don't at this moment, because I think that there's too much contention that surrounds it within the critical community. I think that I would be very surprised if it won.
But you know, Forrest Gump wasn't exactly a critically praised movie either.
It wasn't.
And Braveheart was a little divisive because people, I think, thought it was too violent or too. I don't know if you call it flag waving if it's Scotland back before they probably had flags, but maybe kilt waving. I don't know, but I think that, you know, if they're going to play it safe at the Oscars, I really think like Boyhood's chances are. I think there's no contention linked to Boyhood, but here's the downside is that if they're trying to reach out, at least for the televised Oscars, you want to get they usually are trying to appeal to that broad audience, and right now that broad audience is American Sniper.
Yeah.
It's not Birdman. It's not, you know.
I don't think Birdman, I never thought really Birdman stood a shot at Oscar, to be honest.
So, but it's like Boyhood seems to be, in Selma, I don't think I think the story the conversation has changed now, and also, I mean, there are a lot of reasons, and we've talked about this in the past, on last week's podcast, about why it was, or Carl and I, about why it probably didn't get nominated, but I don't know. I think American Sniper, it's got more of a chance now than I would have thought, you know?
I think it does too. I think it has more of a chance. I still would be surprised. I mean, you know, a lot can change over the next couple of months.
You mean weeks?
Yeah, a couple of weeks, pardon me. God, time. It's going by so fast.
Hours could seem like days.
Where is it all going? I will be very surprised if that. I think that Boyhood stands a very good shot of winning because it's not going to make protests happen and people angry and things like that. And I think that Hollywood's just trying to give a chance to, ultimately the 10 nominations means that more money goes into these films because they'll go into re-release, you know, things like that, and people will be checking them out more. And that's what Hollywood wants at the end of the day, is a little more money spread around.
All right. Well, let us know what you think American Sniper's Oscar chances are in the comments below.